The 22nd of June, 1941. Under the code name Operation Barbarossa, Nazi Germany invades the Soviet Union, its ally in the war against Poland. By late October, the cities of Minsk, Smolensk, Kiev, Odessa and Kharkov have fallen, and millions of Soviet soldiers are forced to surrender, being not only encircled but also cut off from supplies and reinforcements. Because German authorities view the captured Soviet soldiers as a particular threat, regarding them not only as Slavic subhumans, but as part of the Bolshevik menace. From the very beginning, the war against the Soviet Union includes the killing of prisoners of war on a massive scale. Some 5.7 million Soviet army personnel will fall into German hands during the Second World War, and of these, 3.3 million will be dead by the time the war is over. However, while millions will die, hundreds of thousands of Soviet prisoners of war will be released as auxiliaries of the German army and the SS, becoming Nazi collaborators. Of these, almost 5,100 men are inducted, processed, and trained as auxiliary police guards at Trawniki training camp, and their key function becomes deployment in the operations of the final solution, which is the deliberate and systematic mass murder of European Jews. One such guard is a man who for his brutality will become known as Ivan the Terrible. His name is Ivan Marchenko. Ivan Marchenko was born on the 2nd of March 1911 in the Ukrainian village of Sierhiejówka, then part of the Russian Empire. After completing third-grade education, Marchenko was employed as a coal miner in Kryvyi Rih, a big steel-producing city in today's central Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union. Other statements refer to him being employed for a time as a supervisor on riverboat barges, floating lumber on the Dnieper River. Before the outbreak of the war, Marchenko was already a father of 2 children, a son and a daughter, whom he had with his wife Kateryna Krawtchenko. The Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939 when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. Poland found itself fighting a 2-front war when the Soviet Union invaded the country from the east on the 17th of September. The last resistance of Polish units ended on the 6th of October. Less than 2 years later, on the 22nd of June 1941, Nazi Germany, under the code name Operation Barbarossa, invaded the Soviet Union, its ally in the war against Poland. Ivan Marchenko entered the Red Army infantry on the 27th of May 1941. However, on the 10th of July of the same year, he was captured by the Germans near the city of Bila Tserkva, about 80 kilometers south of Kiev. Shortly after his capture, his 3rd child was born. After internment in a prisoner of war camp in Ukraine, Marchenko was transferred to Stalag 319, a prisoner of war camp located in the city of Chelm in German-occupied eastern Poland. It is estimated that around 200,000 prisoners of war passed through this camp, of which around 90,000 died. Ivan Marchenko, however, was not one of them. Instead, in October 1941, he was selected for Trawniki camp, where the Nazis trained prisoners of war to work as SS guards for service in Operation Reinhard, which was the code name for the German plan to murder the approximately 2 million Jews living in German-occupied Poland. Between September 1941 and September 1942, SS and police officials inducted, processed, and trained 2,500 auxiliary police guards known as Trawniki men at Trawniki training camp, located about 40 kilometers southeast of Lublin in German-occupied Poland. Virtually all of them had been Soviet prisoners of war. Deployment in the operations of the final solution, which was the mass murder of Europe's Jews, became the key function of the Trawniki-trained guards. The Trawniki men provided the guard units for the Operation Reinhard killing centers at Bełżec, Sobibor, and Treblinka. German SS and police authorities deployed the Trawniki men in the deportation operations from both large and small ghettos in German-occupied Poland, and as escorts for the transport trains from ghettos to the killing centers. Among the ghettos in which Trawniki-trained guards were deployed were also Warsaw, Lublin, and Kraków. By February 1942, Ivan Marchenko was rounding up Jews in Lublin for the death camps. In May of 1942, Marchenko was sent to Treblinka extermination camp, which was constructed in the summer of 1942. It was the third killing center after Bełżec and Sobibor, established by Operation Reinhard authorities. In Treblinka, the Germans would compete with the Trawniki guards in brutality towards the people selected to die. At each gas chamber, there were 5 or 6 Germans beside the motorists with their dogs. Motorists, such as Ivan Marchenko, were the Trawniki guards who operated the gas chambers which were built next to the motor room, which was equipped with various engines taken from large lorries and tanks. When Trawniki guards turned on the motor, the exhaust gases were led by pipes into the gas chambers, thereby killing the people inside. While at the beginning the Nazis claimed to be able to process, meaning to kill, a train of around 3,000 people in about 3 hours, later on they reduced this to around 30 minutes. In an hour's time the gas chambers were opened up and the bodies taken out, undressed and burnt on a framework made of railway lines, which served as an open-air crematoria. Because of the special savagery Marchenko exhibited while dealing with the Jews during the killing process, he quickly earned the nickname Ivan Grozny, Polish for Ivan the Terrible. His former comrade Nikolai Shalayev used the following words to describe Marchenko. Tall, black-haired, hazel eyes, rectangular thin face, large thin straight nose, a not too noticeable slanted scar, thick-set physique, broad-shouldered, while walking his arms were not straight, but half-bent at the elbows. In the camp, Marchenko wore a black uniform which was similar to a German SS uniform, and he also often wore a leather jacket. Armed with a pistol, he always roamed the camp, clutching a 2-meter-long water pipe and a whip. Marchenko was friends with the deputy camp commandant, Kurt Franz, and was always hanging around the German guards, especially SS Oberscharführer Fritz Schmidt, who was in charge of the SS garage and metal workshop. Marchenko and Schmidt repaired cars together, and when the transports arrived, they were often together on the ramp. As a motorist, Marchenko not only turned on the motor, but he also beat with a lash those condemned to death, shouting, "Faster, faster, the water will get cold. Others still have to go under the showers." Sometimes, as the people destined to be killed approached the gas chambers, they began to back away in terror, trying to turn back. At that point, whips, clubs, and even iron bars were used. Once they were inside, Marchenko made sure that the door of each chamber was closed and locked before the filling of the next chamber began. After, the chambers on both sides of the corridor were full. Marchenko and his aforementioned comrade Shalayev went together to the machine room and started the engines to begin the process of asphyxiation. While the motor was running, he would look through a window to see how the asphyxiation process was coming along. His former comrade Vladimirovich Leleko later recalled that when he asked Marchenko what he saw through the window, he replied, "I see the people writhing, twisting one another." Marchenko was an expert in killing people with his 2-meter-long water pipe. After the war, his former colleague testified how Marchenko, with one blow of the pipe, killed a physically strong man. Ivan Marchenko was also a sexual deviant. With his sword, he would stab women's thighs and genitals on their way to the gas chambers, and sometimes he also raped them. He frequently used his sword to cut off the breasts of women, as well as noses and ears. The ears he would then nail to the walls. In addition, he used to gouge out victims' eyes. At Treblinka, Ivan the Terrible had a dog that would tear off parts of human bodies on command. Marchenko would call to this dog, which was trained to rip off genitals, and point at someone, and the dog would tear off the sexual organ, and the blood would flow all over the place. A Treblinka survivor named Pinchas Epstein later testified, "Ivan took special pleasure in slashing pregnant women with a sword and splitting open skulls with an iron pipe. He was insatiable." One day, a young girl about 12 to 14 emerged alive from the gas chamber, sobbing, "I want my mother." Ivan turned to one of the Jewish workers and ordered him to rape her. The worker refused, and so he and the girl were taken to a burial pit and shot. On another occasion, Marchenko was seen grabbing an infant from a naked woman before she entered a gas chamber and smashed its skull against the wall. Once, he hacked a woman with her child with an axe. Ivan Marchenko was an alcoholic who was always drunk, both on and off duty. On one occasion outside the camp, he attacked one of his comrades named Fyodor Yabeka, who later recalled, "I was in the village of Vulka Okronglik and met Marchenko, who struck me with his fist. He was in a very intoxicated state, and the next day said that he did not remember what it was all about." By the time the Treblinka killing center was dismantled in the fall of 1943, the camp personnel had murdered an estimated 925,000 Jews, as well as an unknown number of Poles, Roma people, and Soviet prisoners of war. All traces of the camp's existence were destroyed. Lupine flowers were sown on the grounds, and an ethnic German farmer was installed on the property to camouflage the reality of what had occurred at this site. On the 20th of September 1943, a convoy of SS men and about 100 Ukrainian guards from the Operation Reinhard death camps left Lublin en route for the port city of Trieste on the Adriatic coast in northeastern Italy. Ivan Marchenko and Nikolai Shalayev were part of the convoy. In Trieste, Marchenko wore an SS uniform, and armed with a rifle, he guarded the Trieste prison and took part in the roundup of Italian citizens for forced labor in Germany. In 1944, when Allied forces were approaching, Marchenko and a driver named Grigory fled in an armored car to the partisans in Yugoslavia. After the war, Marchenko's former comrade Nikolai Shalayev recalled their last meeting, saying, "In the end of March 1945, I saw Marchenko coming out of a brothel. At that time, he no longer served with the Germans, but was with the partisans, and as he said, he had come on leave. He invited me to a nearby restaurant, where he began to tell me about his escape from the Germans. Marchenko told me that he did not intend to return home at the end of the war, and wanted to stay in Fiume, where he had a Yugoslav girlfriend whom he wished to marry, and that he wanted to settle down. This girl was involved with the partisans, and received intelligence from him regarding the Germans." Marchenko was never heard from again, and in the end, he never faced justice for his crimes. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, John Demjanjuk, a retired suburban Cleveland auto worker of Ukrainian descent, was accused of being Ivan the Terrible. He was tried in Israel in 1988 and sentenced to death, but the conviction was overturned after Soviet archives identified Ivan Marchenko as Ivan the Terrible, leading the Supreme Court of Israel to acquit Demjanjuk in 1993 because of reasonable doubt. In addition, 31 former Ukrainian guards at Treblinka said that Marchenko looked different from Demjanjuk. There were no tears shed for Ivan Marchenko. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.